the tRNA. You know that when the tRNA is acting as an adapted molecule. So this idea of tRNA as an adapted, as it carries amino acid towards the site of what is called ribosome, it is called as an adapted molecule. So the idea of tRNA as an adapted molecule was first reported by Francis Crick. Francis Crick was the first person reported that the tRNA is acting as an adapted molecule. You know that when it is normally a small non-coding sequence of RNA. Normally the tRNA is nothing but a small non-coding, doesn't have any code for any of the amino acids. That's why we can say it's a small non-coding RNA chain. Nearly about 74 to 80 nucleotides. Its main function is transporting amino acid to the ribosome for protein synthesis. So it's a non-coding mRNA, a small one because it has only 74 to 83 nucleotides. Now it has two sides what is studied already under the molecular biology about the structure of tRNA. One is called the amino acid binding site, what is called the CCAN, and the third just 3' end. So you see that one, this is the 3' end, what is called CCA end, and this is the amino acid binding site, the 3' region. So the idea of tRNA as adapted molecule was first proposed by Francis Crick. I mentioned already this is a small non-coding RNA chain that transfers amino acid to the ribosome. I mentioned it as a site for amino acid attachment. That end is called actually CCN at the 3' region. This is, you know that one, the 5' and this is 3'. It is a molecule cloverleaf like model we have seen already as proposed by Holly. Already seen the structure in the previous lesson and the molecular just basis of inheritance part 1. So anyway, it is a site for amino acid attachment that is called CCA end, the 3' end. And also a site oppositely oriented to this amino acid binding site, what is called anticodon site, where you have a triplet of 3 bases. Now, the anticodon, what do you mean by anticodon? So the anticodon of tRNA is nothing but a triplet of bases which are complementary to the triplet bases of codon of mRNA. So the triplet bases found in anticodon of tRNA are complementary to that of triplet basis of mRNA codon, and actually that codon normally specifies an amino acid. So, and again, the anticodon is an RNA triplet complementary to an mRNA triplet that codes for an amino acid. So that is the anticodon having a set of 3 nucleotides which form a complementary base pairing with the triplet letters for the basis of codon of mRNA. This is what is that is the basis for actually the protein synthesis. Now amino acid tRNA synthesis. I mentioned already is responsible for the activation of what is called amino acid. It catalyzes the bonding between the specific tRNA and the amino acids. That is the main function of amino acid tRNA synthesis. Once actually the amino acid is linked to the tRNA, the product formed after this event is called amino acid tRNA molecule. So it is a common name for any tRNA amino acid. If it is glycine, then it's called glycine tRNA molecule. So based on the nature of the amino acid, it is named alanine tRNA, arginine tRNA. But it is a common name. Once the amino acid has been bonded to what is called the tRNA with the help of this enzyme amino acid tRNA synthetics, then it's called amino acid tRNA molecule. See, actually this amino acid tRNA molecule travels inside what is called the ribosome, where the mRNA codons are matched with complementary base pairing through complementary base pairing of what is called the specific tRNA antibody. So once the amino acid tRNA molecule is formed, it enters actually into the ribosome, where it passes through or travels through this ribosome, where you have the mRNA codons, and now this actually the anticodon is matched with the mRNA codon of what is called mRNA codon by means of complementary base pairing. Just this is what is happening. Once this one is formed, moving inside, traveling inside, and forms a base pair, complementary base pair with the codon of what is called mRNA. Now, peptide transferase. So I mentioned already, it is found in the ribosome and catalyzes the bonding formation between the carboxyl group of an amino acid and the amino group of another amino acid to form a peptide bond. So as to reach the formation of a long chain. So the peptide transferase enzyme I mentioned at the beginning itself, initially it is found in the ribosome and catalyzes the bonding formation between the carboxyl and the amino groups of amino acids, so as to form a peptide bond that results in the formation of a long chain of polypeptide. So peptide transferase. Now, so these are the different components what I mentioned about. We have nearly 10 components along with the source of energy. We will discuss the elongation factors, initiation factors, termination factors, releasing factors along with these processes. So normally we have three major steps during the process of translation. One is called initiation, the second one elongation, the third one termination. But before that, before actually the newly formed protein has been terminated, what will happen? Some sort of event is what is called translocation of the tRNA from one side to another side is taking place. So the empty tRNA has been shifted from B side to T side. That process is called translocation. So possibly we have three important events, namely initiation, elongation and termination. And a small event, that is what's called translocation. It is nothing but the shifting of empty tRNA from one location, namely the B side, to what is called the A side. That phenomenon is called translocation. Now we'll start with the process initiation. Now here is a picture showing the three different events of what is called translation process. The first phase of translation, initiation. This is normally nothing but the formation of a complex, initiation complex in the mRNA with the help of initiation factors like F1, F2, F3 like that. And elongation, the addition of what is called the amino acids one by one to the growing polypeptide chain that result in the formation of a long chain of polypeptide. And termination, once the translation has been completed, the stop codons are employed to terminate the process of what is called the translation, so that the mRNA is relieved from the ribosome, the dissociation of the ribosomal units, and also the release of long polypeptide chain into the cytoplasm. It undergoes further configurational changes to form a mature protein. So anyway, we have initiation, elongation, termination. These are the three different stages. A diagrammatic representation. We will see the discussion one by one. Now what is happening? So for the transfer of amino acid to the ribosome, first it should be activated. After that, it is being transported by the tRNA. That is why we can have amino acid activation and involvement of tRNAs. Amino acid activation and involvement of tRNAs. Now how is it activated normally? Just in activation, the correct amino acid is linked by means of covalent bond to the tRNA, particularly to the correct tRNA. I mentioned already, normally there is only one tRNA for an amino acid, but in some cases, in some individuals' cells, we have only 45 types of tRNAs for transferring 64 codons. And that is why we have some kind of operation, what is called verbal hypothesis, proposed by Francis Crick, have been used. Will come as later. So normally, one tRNA carries one specific amino acid, but sometimes the same tRNA has been able to just actually transport more than one amino acid. This is we can see because of the shortage of what is called tRNAs in some organisms. So possibly we have 64 codons and 20 amino acids. So for 64 codons we need 64 tRNAs. But in some organisms, we can say most organisms, we have only 45 codons, so 45 tRNAs only. There is a shortage of nearly, for example, 19 tRNAs. In such cases, a tRNA can normally transport more than one amino acid. More than one amino acid by means of a process, and that is being explained later on. So what is happening during activation? The correct amino acid is bonded to the correct tRNA by means of covalent bond. And normally I mentioned there is an amino acid attachment arm. The amino acid is attached to the CCA end at the third, or simply at the third end, at the third terminal end, third dash terminal end. So we have 5 dash, 3 dash. So we have normally the amino acid is attached to the 3' what is called the carboxyl end. The carboxyl end. Carboxyl. We can say the carboxyl because the amino acid is connected to what is called the hydroxyl group present in the 3' end of what is called tRNA. I am using the word differently. So anyway, the amino acid is joined to the CCA end of the tRNA where you have what is called the hydroxyl group. That end is also called 3' end or CCA end. To this end, the amino acid is attached with its carboxyl group. So, a bondage being formed between the acidic group of carboxyl and a hydroxyl group, the alcoholic group that is named the hydroxyl group. So, it is called what is known as ester linkage. So, the linkage between the amino acid and the tRNA is called what is known as ester linkage because the hydroxyl group of tRNA at the 3' end or the CC end joins with the carboxyl group of amino acid. The linkage between an acid and hydroxyl group is resulted. Now, this is being brought about by the enzyme. The joining between the linkage between amino acid and the tRNA is being brought about by the enzyme I mentioned already, amino acid synthase. The energy utilized for that process called GTP, guanosine triphosphate. So here comes the equation. Now the amino acid, it is being activated with the help of energy. The activation is nothing but actually the addition of energy to the amino acid. So it is being activated so that we can get amino acid, guanosine monophosphate and enzyme complex. Now this is activated amino acid. Energy has been added. The activated amino acid can only join with what is called tRNA. That's why it should be activated first. So with the result of what is called pyridine phosphate, it is being done with the help of amino acid synthetase along with magnesium just ions. Now, what is the find? So this is what is called activation. It is being activated. So this is activate tRNA with amino acid and anticodon. So I am taking for example methionine. This is the anticodon and the codon for that one is that one AUG. And here we have for example CCU, that is GGA for glycine. And for valine G, this is a codon, that is GUU, this is a codon for valine. So the methionine with codon and this is glycine with codon and this one just actually. So the methionine amino acid is joined, this is what is called the CCA end, the 3' end with hydroxyl group. And this is what is called the 5' end that look like what is called this tRNA. So the amino acid is joined to, that is what is called the 3' end, the CCA end of tRNA through its carboxyl group with the hydroxyl group present at the 3' end of the tRNA. This is what is happening. So I mentioned different types. So the amino acids, normally this is what we call the anticodon. UAC is the anticodon for, that is AUG codon, and CCU is the anticodon for GGA, the glycine, and CAA is the anticodon for GU for the line. So like that we have. So these are all the mRNA transcript code what we have. Simply this is activated, that is tRNA. So we are not completed the activation process just in terms of see that one complementary base pairing of another picture showing complementary base pairing of tRNA anticodon with the codon of mRNA. Now this is a CCA what I mentioned to which the alanine is attached. Now this is the anticodon. This anticodon normally just forming a pair with a codon of mRNA in the ribose. And proceeding one after another, you see that one the elongation newly synthesized the protein amino acids are added. This is a picture only, I have not yet completed the lecture. Now what is happening? So we are talking about merely the activation. So already now this amino acid has been activated. So now we have the amino acid, guanosine monophosphate enzyme complex. Now at this stage only it is linked to the tRNA. After the activation only the amino acid has been linked to the tRNA. Now we have, this is amino acyl tRNA. A tRNA having amino acid. Now the guanosine monophosphate and the enzyme complex have been removed from that one. So this is what happened. So activation and then linkage of that is amino acid to the tRNA. So once the tRNA has been linked, I mentioned already two. Once the amino acid has been linked to the tRNA, now this is called the charged tRNA. And without amino acid is called empty tRNA. With amino acid is called charged tRNA. So now this is what we have with reference to the same picture. I'll tell more about later once again after completing that one. Now I mentioned already we have three important events. One is called the initiation process. The second one, what we have the elongation, and finally we have the termination process. Along with in between you have some kind of what is called translocation. What is initiation? I mentioned already translation of mRNA begins with the formation of what is called a complex. That complex is formed on the mRNA. So for the formation of such complex, we need certain what is called the initiation factors. There are three initiation factors, and these are all found in the small subunit of ribosome. They are named as F1, F2 and F3. These are all the factors which initiate the process of translation. They are also responsible for the formation of what is called complex in mRNA to initiate the elongation process. They are found in the smaller subunits. So after that, actually the initiation factors are normally present and they are playing a major role in the process of initiation. What is happening? The methionine carrying to the first tRNA is called methionine tRNA. It is also called initiated methionine tRNA because it just forms a pair with what is called the initiated codon, namely AUG for the amino acid methionine. So the tRNA now carrying the methionine binds to the mRNA where near the region where you have the codon what is called AUG because it is the initiated codon, the first codon from the mRNA. So now the tRNA carrying the methionine, what is called methionine tRNA, bind to the mRNA near the region where you have what is called the start codon named AUG, and thus forms what is called the initiation complex. So the initiation complex is because of the initiation factors along with the base pairing between what is called the binding of amino acid tRNA having methionine, and also there is a codon, the initiated codon AUG, that all being formed on the mRNA. This is called the initiation complex. So as soon as actually the initiation complex has been formed on the mRNA, what will happen? Immediately the large subunit joins with the small subunit and also causes the release of GDP, the energy source, along with the release of what is called initiation factors. Once the initiation complex being formed on the surface of mRNA, now the large subunit joins with the mRNA. Immediately what will happen, the complex on the mRNA, the initiation complex, causes the release of initiation factors F1, F2, F3. There is no need for them once again. They are responsible for only the initiation of protein synthesis or translation. After that there is no need, so they are all actually being relieved once the large subunit joins with the small subunit. And I mentioned earlier we have the large subunit has three sites for the different tRNAs actually for binding, particularly just the RNA and the codons normally binding to it. So the large subunit has three sites, namely EPA, for the tRNA molecules to bind. Now this is what is happening, some sort of picture. Now you see that one, this is a mRNA. It is moving towards what is called, actually it is running in 5'3' direction. The ribosome is always moving towards what is called 3' end of mRNA. Now you have just, I mentioned the two sites. So this is what is called the A site and this is what is called the P site. And nearby only we have what is called E site, where you have this empty tRNA resides and then it is being released. So it is being released from this E site. Now you see that one, this is amino acid tRNA. Here I mentioned the 7th tRNA having 7th amino acid. Already we have just 1, 2, 3, 4 amino acids have been added. This is the 5th amino acid in the P site and this is the 6th amino acid in A site, and there is a bond, what is called peptide bond between the 5th and 6th amino acid with the help of peptide transferase. Once the peptide, so once these two amino acids are joined together, now it is shifted towards A site. So now it becomes empty. It is shifted towards the E and it is relieved. So like that. So once again what is happening, this one is translocated, this one with the peptide. This one just with the peptide is shifted towards what, this is what is called translocated to the P site and allowing another amino acid tRNA to come and forms a pair with what is called the codon of messenger RNA. So likewise normally the process being repeated. So one tRNA, amino acid tRNA enters and forms a bond with and binding with what is called the codon of messenger RNA. Immediately one tRNA leaves from the exit site. This is what one is entering, one is leaving, and ultimately translocation occurs from A to P, like that. It is happening. That's why I use the word translocation. It is nothing but the shifting of this what is called tRNA with the polypeptide chain from one location to another location, namely A site to P site and then to E site. This is called what is known as translocation. So anyway, the peptide bond is formed between what is called the carboxyl and amino groups of two amino acids with the help of enzyme peptide transferase. So this is the diagram only. The picture you have to remember what I am going to give the explanation. So this is another picture, a clear picture showing. You see that one, this is mRNA. The ribosome is moving towards what is called 3' direction. And now you have, this is E site, P site, A site. The A site is having the amino acid. Now you see that when the P site is having what is called the tRNA with a polypeptide chain. Soon a bond is formed between these two, then it is being shifted, and now this tRNA being relieved and enters in the E site where it resides without any amino acid. So this is a site with the amino acid, and this is a site with what is called actually the polypeptide chain. Soon it is being shifted to A, so it becomes empty and shifted towards E, and it is being released. That's why it's called as empty tRNA. This is what is happening. Okay, so the arrival of what is called amino acid tRNA, and then what we have a bonding between just the amino acid, the last amino acid in the polypeptide chain of this tRNA, and that is the amino acid of this one. So a peptide bond is formed. Once peptide bond is formed, here the breakage occurs. Now this peptide chain is transferred. The tRNA with the peptide chain is transferred to A, and once again after that, once this P site tRNA, empty tRNA has been shifted or translocated to E site, then the A with what is called this one, the tRNA with the polypeptide is translocated to P. Like that, it provides an accommodation for entry of another tRNA with what is called amino acid. This is the picture, diagrammatic illustration. Now, so I have to go once again the description. So they initiated actually what is called methyl tRNA, MET tRNA, methyl tRNA. The one which recognizes the AEG codon, the initiated codon, the mRNA, is the only amino acid tRNA. That is a tRNA with the methionine, the only amino acid tRNA that can bind with what is called the P site. And all other amino acid tRNAs are binding with what is called the A site. So the only amino acid tRNA, namely the methionine tRNA, just can bind with directly the P site. All other amino acids, simply we can say all other tRNAs with the amino acids normally bind with what is the second, that is what is called the A site. The only amino acid tRNA which can bind directly with the P site is nothing but methionine tRNA. So here the initiated methyl tRNA, the one which recognizes AUG, what I mentioned, is the only amino acid tRNA, what is called the methionine tRNA, that can bind with the P site of what is called the ribosome. And the A site is normally aligned with, that is what is called the second mRNA codon. So the first mRNA codon is normally found in the P site, the second mRNA codon is found in the A site. That's the meaning for that one. This is only for the beginning process. So the initiated codon for just actually methionine is found in mRNA. It is found in the P site. That is why we can have this amino acid tRNA, namely the methyl tRNA, can bind directly with the P site, because the codon is there only. It is oriented there only. And whereas actually the A site is aligned with what is called mRNA second codon for the next amino acid. So this is the one. So for all other amino acids, they enter into the ribosome and bind to the A site only, excepting that the tRNA with methionine, it can bind directly with what is called the P site. The second region, named the A site, is aligned for the second amino acid codon, the second mRNA codon. So now what will happen? Now the ribosome is thus ready to bind the second amino acid tRNA. So once the first amino acid tRNA, named methyl tRNA, binds with the P site, now the ribosome is ready for the binding of the second amino acid tRNA at the A site. and which will be joined to the initiated methionine by the first peptide bond. So now you have what is happening. Once the methyl tRNA binds with what is called the P site, now the A site is meant for the second amino acid tRNA, and as soon as it reaches that place, A site, a peptide bond, namely the first peptide bond, is formed between the methionine and the second amino acid, normally found in the second amino acid tRNA. That is the second position, namely the A site. This is normally formed with the help of what is called the peptide bond being produced with the help of peptide transferase. So the ribosome is thus ready to bind the second amino acid tRNA at the A site. The first site, A site for methionine tRNA. The second tRNA just binds to the A. Second tRNA, namely the amino acid tRNA, binds to the A site, and soon this amino acid in this A site will be joined with what is called the methionine by means of a first peptide bond produced by what is called the name of the enzyme, peptide transferase. Now elongation. So I mentioned already the ribosome is now moving along the mRNA towards the 3' end. That is in the direction of what is called 5' to 3' direction. And ultimately now the amino acids added with the help of elongation factors, namely G1. The factor responsible for the elongation of what is called the polypeptide chain is called G1, and it happens to occur because the ribosome is moving towards what is called actually 3' end. At the same time, amino acids are added one after another and form a peptide bond with the help of peptide transferase enzyme. Now we have the tRNA with the peptide actually in the P site. Soon it is shifted to the A site, and now this actually the tRNA with the peptide is shifted to P and then finally to E. Like that we have. This is what is happening, the repeated process. Normally the amino acids are added to the C terminus, not at the N terminus. So at the N terminus we have methionine. The first amino acid is added to the methionine N terminus, and all the amino acids are added one after another to the C terminus of the polypeptide chain. So we can say translation is said to be amino to carboxyl direct. So the first amino acid is now methionine added to the N terminal, and all other amino acids are actually, we cannot say N terminal, actually it is first amino acid present towards the N terminal. All other amino acids are added only to the carboxyl group. So the translation is always proceeding only in that direction of what is called amino to carboxyl terminal or amino to carboxyl direct, because the first amino acid methionine is present in the N terminal. Another peptide bond is formed between the amino group of the second amino acid and the carboxyl group of methionine. So the second amino acid is added to the carboxyl group of methionine. So it is called C terminal. So translation always proceeds in what is called amino to carboxyl directed position. Now we have, I mentioned all the tRNA that corresponds to the second codon can bind to the A site, what I described earlier, with the help of the elongation factor, namely G1, and the source of energy, namely GTP, which provides energy source, what I described earlier. So once methionine is added to the P site, we have that is a second second tRNA that corresponds to the second codon of mRNA, just normally added to the A site, and with the help of elongation factor like G1, and the energy source for that process is GTP. So after binding active tRNA, that is what is called amino acid tRNA complex in the A site, what will happen? The GTP has been cleaved to release energy to form GTP. So as soon as the amino acid tRNA has been normally positioned, or actually that complex is added or bound to the what is called A site, immediately the energy source guanosine triphosphate is cleaved, broken or hydrolyzed to release energy with the formation of GTP. So now a peptide bond is formed, I mentioned already, between the what is called the amino acid of tRNA. So we have in A site 1 tRNA, in P site 1 tRNA. Now what will happen? The first peptide bond is formed between the amino acid of what is called tRNA in A site and the amino acid of what is called tRNA in the P site. This is with the help of what is called peptide transferase activity of the enzyme. Okay, so a peptide bond is formed between the amino acid of the tRNA, the one which is present in the A site, and the amino acid of charged tRNA, that is the one with amino acid. That is, for example, we can say methionine. In the P side, so P side we have the first amino acid methionine, the A side we have another amino acid. So a peptide bond is formed between these two amino acids by with the help of, that is what we can say, the enzyme peptidyl transferase. So the transferase activity is the catalytic function of what is called the ribosomal RNA. So the transferase is acting as an enzyme catalyzing the process of formation of peptide bond. That is a function of what is called ribosomal RNA. Now we have, that is actually in P site, a tRNA with a growing polypeptide chain. So this tRNA with a growing polypeptide chain is transferred to the A site. As a result, we have translocation occurs. What is translocation? Now at the P site, we have the empty tRNA because the entire polypeptide with the tRNA has been added to what is called, that is the amino acid of the tRNA found in A site. So now what will happen? Translocation occurs. How? Moving the tRNA in the P site, because it becomes now empty, to the E site for its exit to the cytoplasm. So from the P site, the polypeptide is transferred to the A site. And now the P site has empty tRNA that is being moved, that is called translocation to the E site. Then it is released into the cytoplasm to bind another amino acid to repeat the process. And after that, once again, what will happen? The A site, having what is called just the tRNA with the polypeptide, is translocated to P site and provides an accommodation for the new, that is what is called tRNA carrying the amino acid. So the tRNA in the A site leaves and another amino acid tRNA enters the A site to repeat the process. This is what the translocation is, nothing but the shifting of tRNA from one site to another site and finally reaching the A site for its actually release into the cytoplasm to repeat the process. Now termination. You know that one in the mRNA there are 3 termination codons have been employed. They are found at the end of protein actually sequence of a mRNA. At the end of protein coding sequence of mRNA. And they are nothing but UAG, UAG and UGA. So the termination has been normally brought about by 3 termination codons found at the protein codings found at the end of protein coding sequence in the mRNA. It may be UAE or UAG or UGA. These are all called termination codons. So these 3 codons are not recognized by, not identified by any of the amino acids. So that what will happen? In the place of these tRNAs, now the tRNA carrying the amino acid comes and just normally what will happen? Forming a pair with the codon of mRNA. But as these codons, namely these 3 codons, nonsense codons, stop codons, termination codons cannot be identified by these tRNAs, that place is empty and thus these places are occupied by certain proteins. These proteins are called the releasing factors. These releasing factors bind in the places where you have normally the tRNA can be accommodated and facilitates the release of mRNA from the ribosome and also the dissociation of what is called ribosome subsequent. So once these codons are exposed and that place is empty because there is no tRNA coming either to the P or A site, normally A site, and that space is filled with what is called some proteins called the releasing factors. These factors normally just release the mRNA from the ribosome and also cause the dissociation of the units of the ribosome so that the process of translation comes to an end. Now you see that one termination process. Now you see that once the codon, just here I mentioned one of the codons UAA, the termination codon. So once the codon is exposed, what will happen? The process of translation stops. So that what will happen? The mRNA has been released. It's already released, I think the tRNA, the mRNA has been released from that actually the ribosome. The 2 subunits of what is called the ribosome dissociates. Once the termination codon has been exposed, now the mRNA has been released from this ribosome and the 2 units of the ribosome split. or dissociates, so that the protein synthesis or translation comes to end. This is because of the termination factor. It does two functions. One, the release of messenger RNA from the ribosome, and also the dissociation of the two subunits of the ribosome. As a result, the process of protein synthesis comes to an end because of the termination process, because of the exposure of what is called, that is the nonsense codons. Now here another diagram, translating polypeptide, translation termination. See that one here, normally we have, in these places you have the tRNA. But in this case, as once the codon, namely the nonsense codon, has been exposed, the place is empty here because this codon is not recognized by the tRNA. So that space is filled with what is called a releasing factor. It's a kind of protein. So that the dissociation of the two units and the release of messenger RNA takes place. Finally, we have the termination process leading to, that is the completely formed, immature, that is protein, which has undergone configuration changes to form a specific protein. Now about the method, I mentioned already the initiator codon is AUG. So once you have the initiator codon is AUG, in all the proteins normally we have methionine as the first protein, first amino acid. So although the amino acid methionine is the first amino acid that is being incorporated to any new protein, it is not always actually the first amino acid in all the mature proteins. Though it is the first amino acid, as we have the initiator amino acid, initiator codon is AUG. In just actually we have, you think that methionine is the first amino acid in all the proteins. It is not so. Though it is the first amino acid being incorporated into any new proteins, it is not always actually the first amino acid in the mature protein. So after translation has been completed, it is being removed in some of the proteins, it is being replaced. And even if it is present, its position is always towards the N terminus. It is a fixed one because it's the first amino acid, and actually it's always at the N terminus. That is the position of the methionine. Okay, that's about what we have the termination process. Then we have to compare the translation between the prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells. Normally the translation is similar in both bacteria and also in the case of eukaryotic cell, but we have different initiation, the elongation, and also the termination factors have been employed. In prokaryotes, the transcription and translation occurs simultaneously, but in the case of eukaryotes, it occurs only after transcription process. In the case of eukaryotes, actually, the mRNAs are long-lived. They have normally variable half-lives, but in the case of prokaryotes, the mRNAs are short-lived. These are some of the comparisons between, that is, prokaryotes and eukaryotes in regarding translation. Now, Wobble hypothesis. What is Wobble hypothesis? I mentioned already we have 64 codons. For that, we must need 64 tRNAs. But in the case of most of the organisms, we have fewer than 45 tRNAs. So, we have to compensate nearly just 19 tRNAs of shortage, so that some tRNA types must pair more than one codon. Some tRNAs must pair more than one codon because there is a shortage of tRNAs corresponding to the number of codons. And this can be explained by means of a phenomenon what is called Wobble hypothesis by Francis Crick in 1966. So in 1966, Francis Crick explained Wobble hypothesis to explain the phenomenon that the codons, the tRNAs are shortage in number corresponding to the number of codons in some organisms. Now Wobble means the movement. So Wobble base pair, what do you mean by Wobble hypothesis? It is nothing but a base pairing process, a non-Watson-Crick base pair. In Watson-Crick base pairing, you know A is always forming a pair with just U. Just G is always forming a pair with the C. This is what is called normal Watson-Crick base pair. That is during the transcription process. But in the case of this one, Wobble base pairing, what will happen? It is a non-Watson-Crick base pair. unlike the base pairing. Normally A is forming a pair with U in RNA, and G is forming a pair with cytosine. But here, base pairing occur in a different manner. This is why we can say non-Watson Crick base pairing. So there are 4 main vowel base pairs. Normally you know that one guanine is forming a pair with cytosine. Now here the guanine in the third position of the anticodon can also pair with what is called uracil of codon. So this is a guanine, a base in the third position of anticodon. It can pair with C as well as U. And likewise hypoxanthine, it can pair with uracil. It can pair with adenine. It can pair with cytosine. So I can pair with U, I can pair with A, I can pair with C. So the inosine, what is called hypoxanthine in the third position of anticodon, can pair with uracil of what is called just the codon of M. This is the meaning for the point. These are all referring to the third base of anticodon. It forms actually third base, normally found in the fifth position, 5'A. It forms a pair with what is called the nucleotide other than what we have normally, the normal base pair. So we are using what is called I because hypoxanthine is nothing with the nucleotide of inosine. So these are all the 4 main vowel base pairs. So these are all the we are using vowel base pairs with reference to what is called, these are all referring to what is called the anticodon bases. They form a pair with what is called actually the basis of codon of mRNA, more than one base pair. That is why it's called as vowel base pairing. Non-Watson or non-standard, just base pairing process. I mentioned already some of the tRNA can pair up with several different tRNAs. This is possible because the third base of the anticodon normally can form hydrogen bond with more than one kind of base of a codon. More than one kind of base of a codon. So, some tRNA can pair up more than one just actually codon. The reason for that one, this can occur because the third base, I mentioned already, just the third base of the tRNA molecule can form hydrogen bond with more than one kind of base of a codon. So, tRNA molecule we have anticodon, particularly the third base. It can form hydrogen bond with actually more than one kind of base of a codon. This is what we can call this one Hubble hypothesis. So anyway, what is the hypothesis? He postulated that Crick, the 5' actually the base on the anticodon of tRNA, which binds with the 3' actually 3' base on the mRNA, have non-standard base pair. So we have 5, the base at the 5'A, that is in the anticodon. It forms a pair with what is called the 3' base on the mRNA, that is a codon. So there is a non-standard base pairing, non-Watson Crick base pairing. Suppose here we have G. It forms a pair with what is called just a C only, but some cases also forms a pair with U. So the base at the 5' end in the anticodon can pair with what is called normally the base at the 3' end of the codon of mRNA in a different manner, what is called non-standard or non-Watson Crick base pair. This is entirely different from that of a normal base pair. So, what is the reason for that? This is mainly for the wobble. This is nothing with the movement of the base in the 5' anticodon. So, it is simply relaxed. It can just combine with, for example, if you have G in the 5th 5' end of the anticodon, can pair with what is called either U or even, for example, I mentioned just the C also. So that is why the movement of the base, the relaxation of the base in the 5' anticodon is necessary for this wobble process. So we have an example. In the case of yeast tRNA, phenylalanine tRNA, the anticodon has, that is what is called GMAA in 5' 3' direction. This is the anticodon in 5' 3' direction found in yeast phenylalanine tRNA. This anticodon can recognize the codon, that is AUC in 5' 3' and also UUU in 5' 3'. And these both the codons are for phenylalanine. There are two codons for phenylalanine, namely triple U and triple C. You see that one A only normally forming a pair with U. This is what is called Watson-Crick base pair. But it also can base pair with C. This is what is called non-Watson-Crick base pairing or non-standard base pairing. So this is away from Watson-Crick base pairing. So normally A is forming a pair with U. Here A is also forming a pair with C. And this is normally just actually anticodon, third position, near the 5-1. And this is actually the codon sequence. We have the base C. So A is also forming a pair with C in contrast to what is called the normal base pairing. A is always forming a pair with U only. Here it also forms a pair with C. So this is to compensate the loss of the compensate the less in number of what is called tRNAs in some of the organisms. Now here this is vowel codon base. So it may be U, C, A or G. And the possible anticodon basis for this one, you can also see pair with A or G or inos. So these are all actually the bases found in anticodon. They can pair with more than one base. That is called vowel hypothesis. Not worry about this one, we'll have just simply we pass on to the next. So it is because of this only actually the non-Watson-Crick base pairing to occur at the 3' nucleotide of mRNA codon. So base pairing is possible. What is called non-standard base pairing or non-Watson base pairing is possible between the 3' nucleotide of mRNA codon and the 5' nucleotide of the tRNA anticodon. That is now the third base. The third base only highly relaxed. So that is able to, that is called the wobble, relaxation at the moment, because of the ability to just move with anybody. That is why it's called wobble hypothesis. So anyway, the 3' nucleotide of mRNA codon can form a pair with the 5' nucleotide of the anticodon and tRNA. So here is a picture. This is a normal pairing. You see that one. This is anticodon. This is what is called the 5' and the third position. So only the third base is normally wobble in nature, can be able to relax. So this is normal pairing. G is always forming a pair with the C. This is for leucine. For the same leucine, here this is the tRNA. This is what is called wobble pairing. It can also pair with what is called U. This is what is called non-standard base pairing or non-Watson-Crick pairing. So this is what is called normal pairing, standard base pairing or Watson-Crick base pairing. So in such cases, normally we have two tRNAs which can normally pair with, that is what is called different bases. So that we can sort out, we can just compensate the shortage of tRNAs and some. And similarly for glycine. So this is for actually leucine, normal pairing. This is for glycine, all or wobble pair. All are wobble pairing only. You see that one, inosine. In the third position of what is called tRNA anticodon can pair with U, can pair with the C, can pair with A. These are all called non-standard base pairing or non-Watson-Crick base pairing. And a little different. So this is once again to compensate actually the shortage of tRNAs in most of the cells. So these are all some of the pictures. Similarly, we can say wobble hypothesis is nothing but actually the relaxation of the third base. You see that one pairing at the third codon position is relaxed. That means it can pair with anybody. So the G is normally pairing with this. This is a normal base pairing. But in the case of wobble position, the third base is called as a wobble position. And that one now pair with U. So this is actually the relaxation. This is because of the, it is possible because of the relaxation of the third base in the anticodon, so that it can pair with the G. So it can pair with the C, that is G can pair with the C, or it can G also pair with U. This is what is happening. That is called wobble hypothesis proposed by Watson-Crick, simply to just assist the shortage of tRNAs, so to compensate the shortage of tRNAs in some organisms. Okay, so with that I concluded the molecular basis of inheritance. That part is over. We have to proceed the next one about the gene regulation in the next class. Okay, till then goodbye. Now class is complete.